Good evening, everyone. I'm Regina Shearer, your host for the Winning Women Talk Show. And I'm so glad that you found time today to join us in this program. If you are a regular viewer or listener, you know that each and every week I try to present to you a different woman, and she comes from a different walk of life, sharing her journey to doing what she's passionate about and what brings her fulfillment. And when you can be excited about what you do and feel fulfilled, that means you are having success in your career or vocation that you're pursuing. And I have hoped and said every week that as you hear them, that you're being inspired, that you're being motivated. And if you are on that precipice of thinking of a career change or being just a little frustrated because you may be doing something that is working out well for you, but it's not what you really want to do and haven't found a way to do it. I'm hoping that something you hear in these journeys of these women and how they face their obstacles and challenges, that something will make you say to yourself, you know what? If she can do it, so can I. And that's the basic motto of this show, as you know. Now, we also have made it a point to invite you each and every week, and especially if you're a first time listener or viewer, we want you to participate. We invite you to call in with any questions or comments that you would like to present to our guest. And the call in number, if you have your pens and pencils ready or you want to enter this into your digital devices, that number is 781-384-5587. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it. 781-384-5587. And if you're a little phone shy, that's okay. You can email me at regina@rgbinternetradio.com. That's regina@rgbinternetradio.com. And we will make sure that your email, your comments are presented to our guests tonight. And that takes me to the next part. I am pleased to present our guest tonight, and her name is Takia Brown. And Takia is the Director of Community Engagement at the Cambridge Public Health Department, serving as part of the senior leadership team and guiding strategic initiatives that strengthen partnerships between government, healthcare systems, and community organizations. Her work advances equity, mobilizes resources, and embeds community voices into citywide planning. Her leadership has expanded Cambridge's capacity to address complex issues such as maternal and child health, infectious disease prevention, and social isolation among vulnerable populations. Prior to this, Takia's work experience includes being Division Director for Education and Community Engagement in the Infectious Disease Bureau and Program Manager for Start Strong in the Division of Violence Prevention and Child Adolescent Family Health at the Boston Public Health Commission. Also, she has been a health educator and family planner for the Department of Adolescent Health at Boston Medical Center and a victim assistance coordinator for the Office of the Victim Advocate in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Her undergraduate degree is was earned at Pine Manor College in social and political systems, and she is currently completing her master's of public health at Emory University's Rollins School of Public Health, one of the best in the country. And so, with having said all that, the rest she's going to tell you about herself. So welcome, Takia, to the Winning Women show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is so awkward to hear all of those things listed out about myself while I sit here, but thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for being on this show because you have so much to share with us. Your experience is much broader than I presented, but if I try to tell them everything you did, we would use up all of the show time. But you have so much that has led you in your path. So we want to know about it. We want to know your journey. So tell us about you, where you're from, growing up, how you got on to this path of public health.
Yeah. So I'm from Boston. In case anyone couldn't tell. I'm born and raised in Boston. And I think I want to start with my early on educational journey, if you will, because it really did shape me in so many ways. So
Okay.
I went to Boston Public Schools and, then went on to college. But while I was in elementary school and through middle school, I had an IEP, which was a designation for a person that has learning disabilities and or special needs, as we were called back then. And I had struggled with math and reading and all of those types of things. So to get to where I'm at today, I don't think that younger me would have thought that that would be my trajectory, because I spent a lot of time, I think, feeling insecure about my abilities. I knew that I was smart, but didn't understand why struggled so much and why certain things came so hard to me.
Right.
So, um, in middle school, just so happened that my special ed teacher happened to be out for some time, and I got to go to all of the classes that I would usually be pulled out of. And during that time, I realized that I could do that work. And I wasn't being given that type of work in those special ed classes. So by the time I graduated from middle school and got to high school, I said, no, no more. I'm not attending any more special ed classes. I told my family, just go ahead on and sign me out. Give me a chance to try to figure it out and do it on my own.
Mm.
And if I need the help, I will say that I need the help. And I did really well in high school. I still struggle with math, and for the first time had to do summer school, which from my freshman year, which I wasn't so
Right.
hot about. But I was also very much, impressed with myself to have been able to struggle through it and to kind of lean on my capabilities and what I thought for myself.
Hmm.
Now, I will say, with that said, I never graduated. I wasn't top of the class or anything like that, but I made it with my, grit and determination. And then in college, some of those same things that plagued me early on, came back up again. I had a hard time paying attention to subjects that like I wasn't interested in, or like I just had a hard time retaining, could be in class and hear all the things, but just like could not retain some of the information. Found it really difficult to do that. And so I had the luck of having some professors that really saw me as a student, that saw my capability and my intelligence and believed in me and would, try to work with me and be supportive. And they were, and it was totally, totally helpful. But I was a student in college that got put on academic probation. I
Hmm.
graduated undergrad with a 2.67. And I know because
Right.
it's hard for that 2.67, because I had classes that I had to withdraw from.
Hmm.
Um, I found it difficult to manage a workload of taking 4 classes at a time, things of that nature.
Right.
And so when I got out of college and, went on to work and all of that, and then decided to go back to grad school, it took me so long. I'm 40 now. It took
Hmm.
me so long to go to grad school because I was really afraid that I would not do well. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome kind of seep in to that, because I had seen how difficult school had been for me, even though I enjoyed learning
Hmm.
very, very, very much. It just didn't, my grades would not have reflected that if that were the only thing. And it took for me to become a mom and to go to therapy and to have other conversations about really what my struggles were,
Hmm.
to finally get diagnosed with anxiety and ADHD. And it made everything fall into perspective. And then I couldn't believe that I had been going through life struggling, just kind of taking the burden of how difficult school had felt for me at different times all on my own, and kind of internalizing that as like, I just can't do this thing, and not actually being able to understand that my brain just works differently.
Mhm.
And the way I relate to the world and like how I understand things are different. And there are things that a person with an ADHD brain like myself can do amazing at, and there are other things that I need to take my time with. So this last, I would say, year or so, because this is fairly new for me, the diagnosis and everything has been so validating and so rewarding. So if there are any students or any people out there listening that have had an experience similar to mine in education wise, I would say, do not count yourself out, and advocate for yourself, and seek help. Yeah.
Right. So I have two questions. The first one is, so in high school, you decided you were going to fight this battle
Hmm.
on your own, and it wasn't going to be as a result of being in a special needs class or with the use of an IEP to which will cause instructors to give you opportunities to learn in different ways, right? Or with different helps.
Hmm.
And so, what were some of the things you figured out you could do for yourself?
So I don't think that I had it down in high school. I will say this. I had an English professor that I remember. I mean, English teacher and a history teacher. They were to my two black teachers that I had.
Hmm.
And the confidence and expectations that they had for the black students just made me feel like I could do anything because they expected it from me. Um, and it was an English class, so which I liked, but that was a lot of like memory work and how I'm dyslexic as well, on top of all of this. So
Hmm.
like reading was difficult because of that. But I would do is like picture, like I would see a word and kind of like photographic memory, then know what the word is, and then like could remember what it looked like, even if I couldn't properly sound it out or like put it together correctly. That was one thing that I did. And then my history class, I remember just really, really being interested in history. And my teacher at the time really kind of taught Black history. So we were watching things like Eyes Won the Prize and learning about the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment and, the significance of those things for Black people. So then I was like, with the ADHD brain, when you are really interested in something, you will hyper focus on it and it becomes very easy to recall those things. So this
Yeah.
stuff just came to me super easy because I was like into it and I was like downloading it into my brain type of thing. For the classes that were not like that, which was primarily math, I remember. Oh God, the struggle of just having to look at a problem, repeat, 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 try to memorize the steps. That's why I ended up in summer school because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But when I got to college, I remember having to make sure that like maybe I had somebody proofread my papers. Maybe if I wrote something, that like take a step back from it and come back and like read it again, because I would do things like maybe write a sentence or something and like leave out certain words. I knew it was supposed to be there, but like I just didn't write it down.
Hmm.
Or if I come back to the paper after I take some time away to read it, I'm reading it as if that word is there because I know it's supposed to be there, but it is not there. So
Right.
trying to like take time away um to do that and to try to just get help when I needed to. But I had really associated the extra help with like, this makes me inferior or not as smart. So I
Oh,
really need to try to figure it out on my own. I need to just kind of power through. And becoming an adult learner as I am now, and being in school now, I kind of said, and through therapy, like, I don't have to struggle with this. I can get extra time on an assignment if I need it so that I can take the time away and come back, or not feel the pressure of, oh my God, I have this deadline, and then get into like a paralysis of not being able to do the things. And so I've been just trying to like utilize that where I
Yes.
can. And it's been great. And I will say that my master's program is 3 years. This is my last year. This is the first year that I'm using my academic accommodation for my ADHD. But
Oh.
up until now, I have a 3.5. And that's amazing coming from the girl with the 2.6. So,
Yes.
yeah, in a graduate program. So,
Right. But and I applaud you, because when you're younger, you do feel that there's something inadequate about you when you have these types of struggles, and why me? Why do I have to, why can't I process things the way other people do, etc. But as you grow more mature, right? And I don't want to say older, but
oh no, I'm
as you
older.
become more
It's
mature,
okay.
you see things differently, because now you're thinking about what will best benefit me, and
Right.
if these resources are available, I'm taking advantage of them because
Yes.
I'm paying for them, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
yeah, the other question I had is, I mentioned in your introduction that you majored in social and political systems. So one, what made you look at those two things?
Hmm.
But then how did you end up in public health?
Right. Yeah, that's great. So I was in school back in 2003. We didn't have a public health um, major then. It took until I was leaving school. I think maybe 2 years after I had graduated, they had come up with something called community health, and it was like new. What, you know what I mean? So, as I mentioned, though, I really enjoyed history when
Mhm.
I was in high school, and I had the teacher. It was like teaching Black history and things like that. So I thought going into college that maybe I would be interested in maybe interior design, or like maybe African American studies. Um, so I was like really kind of, this is where I might want to go with this. And taking some sociology classes, I realized, oh, this is giving me language to understand the world around me and to understand experiences that I've been having as a Black person and what I see other Black people experience by discussing things like sexism, racism, classism, power, privilege, stereotypes, um, all of these things. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was able to learn about those concepts. And of course, in my brain, I'm filtering it through the experience of Black folk. And so I was just fascinated and love to do it. And then the college social and political systems is more like a sociology degree. But of course, because we talked about power and privilege and all those things, we also talked about politics and advocacy and like all of those things. So it was like the perfect kind of marriage.
Mhm.
When I graduated, my first job was at Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts, and I worked in their advocacy department as a grassroots organizer.
Mhm.
And I worked on the Obama campaign to get 1 million women out and registered to vote back in 2008. So phone banking and door knocking and all of that, which was a perfect marriage between my interest in sociology, like understanding how systems and things like that comes together, and oppression, right? And the advocacy part, like the policy, it all came together very nicely. And I had this interest also in reproductive justice. And so that is really where I started to make the turn toward and to learn about public health.
Mhm. For those of you who have just joined us, you have been listening to our guest tonight, Takia Brown. And Takia is the Director of Community Engagement at the Cambridge Public Health Department. and she is on the senior leadership team that guides all the initiatives, the partnerships with government and healthcare efforts to advance health equity and mobilize resources and basically bring community voice into citywide planning, especially when it has to do with issues of public health and safety. So we are glad that she's here tonight, but we also would like to hear from you. And I'm going to put this information up again. You can participate tonight. If you have a question or a comment that you would like to make, you are welcome to do that. And we invite you to call us at 781-384-5587 or email me, Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. Now, we want you to know that we are going to take a very quick break and we are not going to be long. It's about 30 seconds, but we have a sponsor that we want to give time to. So don't go too far. And if you can call and we'll put you on hold, don't worry. But we want to hear from you. And when we come back, we'll hear more from Takia Brown.
Do you know how many people are harmed by domestic violence every day? Every minute, 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner. Do you know what the leading cause of homelessness is for women? Domestic violence. Do you know how domestic violence ends? Through your help. If you know someone who needs help from abuse, please call Portal to Hope at 781-338-7678. Portal to Hope is a survivor-driven team seeking to provide shelter, safety, and a pathway to gaining an abuse-free life. Call Portal to Hope at 781-338-7678. We are here to help.
And we are back with our guest, Takia Brown. And I thought about you while our sponsors promotion was being played, because you have done some work in this type of area or with women who have been in these types of situations. You've kind of layered yourself, and it's been, I work with this group, now I'll work with this group, now I'll work with this group, and on until you're in a position to work with all groups, right? What you do impacts all of the various people and constituencies that you have supported, advocated for, or had leadership roles in their resource advantages. And so can you tell us about a couple of the things you've done prior to your current work, and what some of your greatest challenges were?
Sure. So why don't I start back at I'll start back at Planned Parenthood, because that was my first like big girl job. Um, and so I'll just say that the degree in sociology, I think was the underpinning for the underpinning for my understanding of like how the systems and policies and different things kind of operate. Now being in public health, well, getting the degree in public health, I should say, the underpinning there is something called social determinants of health. And social determinants of health are anything that's impacting your health where you live, work, and play at, right? Your access to clean air, a safe neighborhood, the ability to get your mental health needs met, access to education, a livable wage, health, to be able to go and get healthcare, all of those things. These are the things these are the social determinants of health. And social determinants of health are often impacted by things like sexism, racism,
Right.
classism, right? Or, when you go into a doctor's office, how that person perceives you because you're a Black person or an immigrant, or English is not your native language, these types of things. And so as a public health practitioner, we are thinking about how these things intersect with the work that we're doing, and then what can we do to kind of break down those barriers. So after Planned Parenthood, I had a few other jobs and eventually landed at the Boston Public Health Commission, where I had really wanted to be at. And I worked in the Bureau of Child, Adolescent, and Family Health. first as a health educator, and I taught sex ed in the high schools. Then I left, went to the Peace Corps, did some maternal child health work with the Ministry of Health in Zambia, specifically working on birth control and safe delivery for rural health outposts, making sure that they had safe delivery kits or that the midwives had what they needed in order to do deliveries for women that couldn't make it to one of the rural health clinics. And then I came back, ended up in Pennsylvania, and then came back to Boston again, and then ended up at the commission again. And then that second time I was violence in the Division of Violence Prevention, same bureau, Child, Adolescent, Family Health, but program manager for Start Strong, which is a teen dating violence prevention program.
Oh,
And I did that through the pandemic. But that program, I mean, I really enjoyed working with the young people there. And during the pandemic, because the young people couldn't, like, you know, be out and about like they normally would and be teaching their curriculum, I started a podcast with them. The young people focused. I mean, they led the podcast. They did the interviewing and all of the things. I kind of ran the behind the scenes stuff and kind of helped with the production piece, if you will. But it was amazing to see young people interviewing other young people or other trusted adults and getting resources out and things like that in that way. And from there, I ended up in infectious disease at the commission.
So in today's technology, biomedical knowledge, right, and everything, it amazes me that we are still having to deal with Planned Parenthood. I'm just, you know, I guess I'm just maybe frustrated, but I don't. And when you just mention, you know, prevention measures against sexually transmitted diseases, it's I can't. I don't understand how or why we're still trying to educate people with all that's out there. So what do you find are some of the leading causes? Is it ignorance or is it just
Yeah, so I would say, especially within the sexual health realm, the biggest thing is that we don't have a um, consistent way of educating folks about sexual health. So, and I mean, age appropriate, comprehensive sexual health, something that should be started all the way down in elementary school. And at that, of course, we're not talking to young kids about sex, but we're saying your body parts and using the correct language and teaching them about safe boundaries. And if something happens to you, who to talk to. I mean, from there, right? And then going into middle school, and we're talking about puberty and your body changing and like hormones and things like that, and how you might be feeling.
right?
And then as you know, young folks get older, where I was at in high school, literally talking about birth control options, how to have conversations with your partner about sex, and talking about consent, and making sure that young people understand what that is. But
Yes,
depending on what school you go to, you may or may not get that. And so, as a country, we don't have a consistent way that we are educating our population about these things.
right,
And we live in a world where we're not talking about it, but it's all over the TV. It's all in social media. It's sex is everywhere. Everyone knows, but there's no concerted effort to put out in front of folks the information that they need,
right,
and to make sure that their access to healthcare is there for them when they need
right.
it, and that people can go get pre-test and treatment if they need it. I'm lucky to live in Massachusetts and in Boston, where there are plenty of clinics that will, test you for STIs, offer treatment, and offer partner
Right.
treatment, because they know that, okay, your partner's not, he's not a patient here, or they're not a patient here, but we'll give you a prescription for them, because it doesn't make any sense to treat you and then you're with that person and then you guys continue to pass it along. So as a way to try to prevent that, offering partner treatment. But just as a country, we don't have a good way of addressing it because we're not all doing the same thing.
Right. And so if we're not all doing the same thing, there's no consistent messages and expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you said something, and you when you started talking about where you're at now, you said child, adolescent, and family, right? And
Yeah.
the word that stuck out to me more than child was adolescent, because my
Mm-hmm.
understanding is adolescent is preteen.
Adolescents are teen all the way till 21.
Really?
13 to 21, basically.
Oh,
Yeah. So the children are like 0, 0 to 10 or 11, 12, that kind of chunk
oh.
of age range. And then after that,
Well, that'll
adolescence.
show my
And
age
so,
because I grew up and when you were like 10, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, you were considered an adolescent or a preteen, right?
yeah,
Then
yeah,
you were a
yeah, yeah.
teenager. But okay, so
Yes,
I
yeah,
got it. I got it. All right.
yeah.
I was getting
So,
nervous because I'm thinking, are you telling me we have to have these kinds of conversations consistently with okay.
no, no, and that's why I was really making the point to say like age appropriate too,
Right.
right? Because and why I was trying to break it down from like in elementary school, like the conversation that my son is 4, he will be 5 in January, but the conversation that I will have with him now versus the conversation I would have with him at 10 versus the conversation I would have with him at
Mhm.
15 and 20 and 25, those are gonna be different conversations about what he needs to be thinking about and doing and how
Good
how
luck at
he can
20 and
understand
25.
situations. Yeah, because listen, 20 is that's in college, and that's really is going to be important to understand
Yes.
consent and to also have an understanding of how to be not to be a silent bystander when you see other things happening,
Yes.
right? How do we not be bystanders? How do we advocate for the people within our circles, or have difficult conversations with our friends if we see them
Mhm.
doing
See
something
something.
that is not right? Like, what can, as a male identified person, if that's where he chooses to go once he gets older, be a male identified person, but what is your role in sexism, and what is your role in a culture that says that a female's body is not her
Right.
own, or that she owes you something because you took her on a date or whatever. So this will be ongoing conversations that
What
I will have, and they will be
what do you
different.
find to be one of the number one topics of discussion with the adolescent group?
When I worked with the teens, our program, like I said, was all about dating violence prevention, and so we really talked a lot about consent. You know, I might be okay with a kiss, and I might not be okay with other type of touching, or I might be okay with a kiss today and I'm not okay with a kiss tomorrow, and that's okay. And how do we understand that? And how do we have those conversations and negotiate that stuff with our
Okay.
partner? And how do we talk about using protection if we are going to have
Mhm.
sex? Without, I know they would be like, oh, it might feel like it's going to kill the moment to say, oh, stop, we need to do this. But like, really, we're talking about advocating for ourselves because we're thinking about our future. What type of life do you want? And what are some things that might, get in the way of or not allow you to go down that path? And then what can you do? What agency do you have, and the choices that you make right
Mhm.
now to make sure that you're able to achieve the goals that you say that you're setting out for yourself? So conversations like that,
Mhm.
and about finding trusted adults that they can talk to in their
Yes.
life, really important.
What are some of the greater challenges with the parents of adolescents? Because it's child, adolescence, and family, right? So
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
yeah. And so yes, no, so my program that I was with really focused on the young people, and I worked directly with them. And so I did not work with the parents. But from the young people, they would say, I don't know if my parents, I feel like they might judge me, or I feel like I don't know how to say these things to my parent. And so, I would always encourage them, like, maybe start to have a conversation, ask some hypotheticals or like see what's going on. But if not your parent, do you have an older sister, an older brother? Is there an auntie or an uncle or older cousin that you're really close with that, you know, you can maybe have some conversations with, just somebody that's not just within your immediate peer circle, because that could be like the blind leading the blind, right? So who has some outside perspective that you respect, that you feel as though um, you can be comfortable with enough to go and get some advice? That was really kind of important. In the bureau, though, because of the family piece, there were other programs that worked with pregnant and parenting people, that work with people that had small children age 0 to 5, things like that. I was just in violence prevention, and so I worked with the teens around teen dating violence prevention. But in that bureau overall, there were lots of different programs that kind of addressed
Right.
different buckets that I mentioned: child, adolescent,
Yeah.
family.
Dude, well, let me, we have some emails. So let me get, I don't want to hog asking all the questions. So I will,
Okay.
this one says, "Good evening. What a journey listening to Takia. I cannot tell at all that she ever struggled to learn anything. It seems now that she knows some of everything. So that makes me want to really tune in to listen. What a great range of experiences. Question: Given current unfortunate political climate, do you have any plans or goals to meet the upcoming challenges of cuts to the care and services that are needed in your community?"
Yes. So, one of the things that I have been doing is just looking for as many grants as I possibly can to apply to be able to shore up programming that I know the health department is going to need, specifically around maternal and child health, which is something that I am really passionate
Mhm.
about. But outside of funding, the other thing that I've really been looking at are policies. What policies can we put in place that would provide people with the support that they need to be able to access, healthcare that would be really, really crucial for them. And so, for instance, New York has a policy for pregnant people, and it's an accommodation that you can take time off work to go to your prenatal
Mhm.
appointments without needing to use your personal time or take a vacation day or a sick day or something like that. Because most people are going to need that time for the maternity leave when they actually
Right.
have baby and need to be home. And so um to be able to have an accommodation like that is extremely helpful, especially for people who are working and often may working hourly wage
Yes.
jobs and may need to the calculation between, can I make it to my doctor's appointment, or do I miss hours at work and then not be able to put food on the table or pay their rent or do whatever. We want to shore up people so that they don't have to make that decision between their health and other things that impact their livelihood. So again, thinking about addressing those social determinants of health. So even outside of what the federal government is doing, which is a lot, there are things that we can do at the local level to think about how we can support our residents. And policy is one way to do that, and it's something that we've been exploring in Cambridge.
Right. Well, I think I love that question because I was having a conversation with a colleague, and one of the things is that a lot of people have fears about the resources that were federally funded and or federal grant
Yeah.
opportunities. And so they're looking for other philanthropic
Hmm.
institutions and foundations, investment companies or whatever. But at some point, all of those places are going to be swamped. Right. So it's almost like you got to get there first, or uh, you've got to
Hmm.
get into the bid first, or the
Yeah.
RFP, whatever it is that
Yeah.
is coming out. And so, um, for you, as you're looking at it, what are some of the primary grants that you are looking for to have funded? For
Yeah. So there is some state funding still around. So, whenever I see anything like that, or like Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation, um, other
Yes.
smaller places where it might not be, like a huge, this is a grant for 5 years and X, Y, and Z, but enough to supplement, maybe what we
Right.
need.
Okay.
But I do think, though, it's important to think about diversifying the way that we do our work. And this is a time where a lot of people are coming together across different agencies and different silos to say, okay, wait, you got a little bit of money and you're doing this, and I'm doing this. Maybe we need to combine our efforts here to achieve XYZ goal. And so that's also something that the times are unfortunate, but I think a positive thing is people are coming to the table and trying to
Right.
figure out how to get things done and having conversations that they otherwise wouldn't have. And Massachusetts, is pretty resource rich in a lot of ways. And because of that, people have just worked, in their bubble doing their thing. And now folks are kind of popping their head up to say, okay, wait a minute, maybe I should link up with this person over
Right.
here or this agency here. Maybe we can do this together. You got a little bit, I got a little bit, we got a
Well,
potluck now. And so I think that's kind of where
but
where
I
we're
think
at.
that's great. I think there should be more collaborations in just to be honest, I
Yeah.
recognize that, especially when we're talking about um, entities like public health, that there's a lot of collaborations and partnerships that would make sense, right, in that
Hmm.
realm. So that leads me to my next question. In your, and I'm sorry, I really wasn't, I didn't phrase that well. I really wasn't looking for the exact institutions. I was thinking of what initiatives would you be going to these institutions to to get grant funding
Oh,
for.
oh, yes.
And so, and when you're looking at community health, what are maybe the top three priorities?
Yes. Yeah. So right now, I'm really looking for some maternal child health initiatives. So the health department has we have some programming around early childhood literacy. And it is great. We have community ambassadors and things like that do home visits and run play groups, and they're multilingual. And it's really, really amazing. And I really want to kind of expand that work to also include um, parental like resource navigation. If you say you have a little person, you have a little baby, or a toddler or something like that, and maybe you're newly pregnant again, and now Massachusetts has recently expanded access to doulas. Like, how do we make sure that these moms um, know about that resource and are able to get access to a doula? Having a doula really increases better birth outcomes for Black and Brown people. That has something that has been
Yes.
proven through research. And so we need to make sure that people have access to that. So things like that, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get funding to like maybe get a community health worker that can work within the hospitals and, make sure that people, have access to these programs and know about these and kind of really be that connector. I also have a youth engagement program that I oversee. And so she's also looking for funding around youth wellness. So there are a lot of different things that I'm specifically looking
Mhm.
to do. And one of the other things I would really love to do at the health department, um, outside of the maternal child health and the youth work that I mentioned, um, is a community health advisory board for the health
Mhm.
department. And I'd like to be able to pay people to participate in that. You come to community and ask them to be a part of something. It's important to show that you appreciate that time that
Right.
they are giving you, to be able to compensate them for it, but also to make sure that community knows that they have a stake in what their health department is doing, because we work for them. We are, public
Right.
servants. So that is something that I'm really interested in.
We have a caller on the line, and so I'm going to take that call, but we'll come back to that. So,
Mhm.
good evening, Erica. Welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. You're on the line with Takia Brown.
Good evening, Dr. Good evening, Takia. It's been really nice
Hello.
listening to the show thus far. Just, Takia, you have a wealth of knowledge, truly, and you're saying things that I never knew, didn't realize. Just listening has kind of opened my mind up to a few things that I didn't even think of. So thank you for that.
Oh,
The
thanks.
question that I have is, I know that you have to cover a bunch of different situations and subjects related to public health, which is great because that's what you're there for, and that's clearly what you have a passion for. I've been noticing, maybe it's just because I've just been noticing it a lot more, maybe it always existed, that there are more elderly people on the street now, whether it's homelessness or drug addiction. And the reason why I say drug addiction is, you know, how you can tell if somebody's been taking something because of the way they're moving. And there's even some kind of new drug that's out that's making people kind of like bend all the way over like a zombie. I forgot what it's called, but unfortunately, it's this new drug that's being pushed, right? And it was sad because I noticed that there were older people, like people that I would consider seniors, on the street in this situation. And I was just so shocked, you know, and so saddened by that. And I'm wondering, do you encounter that situation in that, you know, are there people in those situations that you're helping, or are you trying to reach out to them too as part of the work you do? So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Specifically in Cambridge, but also within public health, mental health and substance use is something that definitely is within our realm. And one of the programs I oversee specifically deals with substance use. So we make sure what you're talking about when you notice a person nodding off or like bending over, that's a result of opioid use. And and people, you know, sometimes overdose, and it was very, very sad that, you know, this issue has kind of really struck in the country, and so many folks have been impacted by it. But one of the things that we do is provide Narcan training. Narcan is it's something that you can give to someone, that you can administer to someone, that if they are nodding off or overdosing, can help to like bring them back. And, you know, you call 911, of course, to get them like medical attention. But our programs train people in how to use Narcan if you see somebody in immediate need. And also because opioids are often used, you know, intravenous, like with a needle. Sometimes there are needles and things like that, like on the street. And it's very dangerous if, you know, someone comes across a contaminated needle. So our program also has a syringe redemption program where folks who use can save the needles that they have, because most of the time they're on the street because people don't have a safe way to dispose of them. So this syringe redemption program, people can save the needles that they have, come to the van, give the needles to a professional that can get rid of them safely. And people can get about 10 cents like per needle, no more than $10 or something like that, you know, per time. But it's able to help folks who may be living on the street. You get a little bit of money, maybe you can buy yourself a meal. You're able to safely dispose of those needles. It keeps them off the streets, keeps other people from, you know, potentially harming themselves. So these are the things that we try to do around like harm reduction, whether it's making sure that people have training on how to use Narcan, which can be life-saving, making sure that people have a safe way to dispose of the needles. And within that program that I was mentioning, if people have questions about healthcare, mental health, things like that, able to connect them to other agencies within Cambridge that are doing that work, that can get them hooked up to the care that they need. I'll just say that the problem is so immense, though, throughout the country. It kind of feels like we are working very, very hard, but it is difficult, and it is vast. And I do wish that the federal government was paying more attention to this and giving, you know, more aid and help towards programs that are really on the ground, providing the frontline care for people.
Right. Well, Erica, thank you so much for calling in. Our caller left the line it's most times they want to be able to continue viewing and seeing, and there's a time lapse between when they're talking to you and when response comes. But thank you so much, Erica, for the wonderful question. You know, you were talking before we took her call and about the priorities, and you were talking about doulas and pregnancy and maternal health. And I just am curious, is this focused on primarily BIPOC women? And is that mortality rate so dangerously high that this is one of the emphases for you?
Yeah, so the state has conducted research and has a statewide effort to uplift programming that would impact Black maternal mortality because the rates are horrible. In addition to that, though, health departments do something called a community health needs assessment, where we look at state data, we look at the community level data to understand, what is going on with the community. And then we also like survey and focus group residents to hear, what is it that you care about? Where do you think we need to be? What are we missing? We kind of compile all that data, and that tells us, okay, what the health of our community is and what those needs are. And after we have all that information, we put together something called a community health improvement plan. And so we say, okay, this is what we found out in the research, and now this is what we're going to do to address those things. So in Cambridge, low birth weight babies came up as an area, as well as other chronic diseases like diabetes and cancer, things, high blood pressure, things like that. And so said, okay, we need to make sure that we are addressing these things. And by knowing that, we can say, okay, who are the community partners that we can work with to help us do that? Or what are the educational things that we can do to help promote these things and educate the community? And so back to the maternal child health question, like that is where that comes from. It's not surprising to know, okay, low birth weight. The state also has this initiative around increasing, better health outcomes for Black maternal health and maternal health in general. But it's not just even Massachusetts, like within our country.
Yes.
We just don't do well at taking care of people who are pregnant, and it doesn't make any sense. And us compared to other developed nations where we do horribly, and we don't have to. And we know that there are things that can improve those outcomes, like I was mentioning, doulas being one of them. We just have to do
Right.
better.
And I know that some of
So yeah.
those challenges are far beyond the domain of public health because, you know, there are socioeconomic factors that play into ability or inability to receive the type of health care or to be able to afford the type of health care in those situations. So,
Mhm.
what is Takia Brown's next steps when she gets that master's in public health? And what's your trajectory? What is hopefully your next step? Are you going to you're going to head up the department? Are you going to head up the commission? Where do you?
Wow, yeah. I mean, right now I am really focused on doing all that I can do at the Cambridge Health Department, and really interested in different policy initiatives and things like that that can make substantial kind of long-term impactful change. I'm really wanting to collaborate with our mayor and the city manager and things like that at Cambridge, working really closely with Chief Derek Neal, our public health our chief public health officer, and he has been an amazing mentor to me during my time here at Cambridge, and I've just continued to lean on his expertise. And he's introduced me to National Forum for Black Public
Mhm.
Administrators, and I went to an amazing conference and got to see all of these just committed, talented, intelligent Black public administrators to see them all in one spot and realize how many amazing Black people is really running this country. Because like on a local level, whether it's different offices or whatever, like heading up those offices and getting the work done on the ground and committed to being
Yes.
servants was just so inspiring. And so I just like locked into this work and want to continue to do that.
Well, if you have been watching this show like me, you know that Takia is very passionate about the work she does and the advocacy and support services that she and her staff make available to the people that they help. And I can't say enough about that. It shows you glow. And so you're in your niche, and and I know that as you look more, and I think you use the phrase, at the social determinants of health, right? As you identify that you're going to have a major role in decreasing the negative impacts of them, and if not eliminating them altogether. And whether it's through legislation or service, advocacy or agency, I know you're going to do some great things in that field. So someone is saying, oh, I'd love to have her as a mentor, or does she mentor people, or how can I get in touch with her? I have some questions. I'm thinking about going in public health field myself or whatever. Is there any way that people can learn more about you or get in touch with you?
So I got rid of all my social media, and
Okay.
at the top of the election, I was like, oh God, for my mental health, I need to back up, especially because of the work that I do. I'm so like, it's just too much. But
is there an organization that they can contact?
I am on LinkedIn. I was going to say I'm on LinkedIn, just Takia Brown. Find me on LinkedIn, TEAKIA, Brown like the color, and just shoot me a message there, and I will do my best to like get back to folks. But I'm happy to, to talk to people, especially if you're interested in public health. Please shoot me a message. I'd be happy to chat. But that's where people can primarily find me at.
Okay. Well, Takia, thank you for spending time with us tonight, talking about your journey, sharing the work you do, the things you're passionate about, the concerns in your industry and in your field. And we are expecting to hear good things about your master's degree from one of the most prestigious schools in the public health arena with their programs. So all the best to you. I'm sure the next time we talk to you, you'll probably be in your doctoral program.
I thought about it, but
you got to take a little break. I know.
Yeah.
But we wish you nothing but the best and great success, not only in what you're striving to accomplish, but for those who are going to be fortunate enough to reap the benefits of the initiatives that you lead.
Oh, well, thank you. I received that. Thank you so much for having me.
We thank you for being here. So thank you all for taking time out of your day and spending time with us here on the Winning Women Talk Show. If you enjoyed this talk show, we want you to know that you can also tune in on Monday nights at 8:00 for a show called Talk Time with Robert Brown. And Talk Time deals with what's going on locally, regionally, nationally, internationally, that are the hot topics, the topics of concern. And again, it's a participatory program, so you can call in and you can disagree or agree with what you hear, and you can voice your opinions. We love to hear from our listeners and our viewers. If you just love RGB Internet Radio, you like our music and everything, then you should know by now that on Saturdays from 5 to 7, there is Let's Go Back, which is oldies but goodies time with DJ Bobby B. And then on Sunday morning, as you're getting ready for church from 6:30 to 8:30, there's Sunday Morning Glory with Bishop Robert G. Brown. And so you can do that. And there's much more. You want to know more? Go to www.rgbinternetradio.com and find out more about us. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. Have a wonderful weekend. And remember, love somebody. We're out of here. Thanks for spending time with us.